Pranahuti. We are acting like puppets at a show dance, which we alone are enjoying. We are so much lost in its charms that we get rigidly entangled in it. If ever the thought of getting out arises at all, the entanglement becomes too compelling a bondage for us. The more we wish to be out of it, the tighter becomes its hold upon us, and all our efforts turn out to be fruitless. The charming pleasantry does not allow our attention to be diverted away from it. The only possible way out would be to take into account its basic cause, presuming it to be the ultimate. When we repeatedly take into our thought the origin of it, the same view settles down in our heart. This may be interpreted as a remembrance. But since it is linked with the origin, our thought travels on towards the ultimate. This we develop by the practice of meditation. When we begin doing it, help begins to flow down from the very source. When you link yourself with it, the outer charms begin to fade automatically. It is good that you have made your mind for abhyas, but its fulfillment also rests upon you alone. If you take in a deep impression of the reality, meditation cannot but start by itself. Thank God you have started puja, meditation. Otherwise, I would have considered it as my own weakness. When you have started meditation, I am sure the eye of the bubble will soon witness the face of water. May God grant you perseverance and steadiness. You say that some particular force takes hold of your body, pushing aside other forces and makes you do the abhyas. Thank God you have begun to receive my transmission. My prayer is now proving to be fruitful. You may consider it a good sign of your progress. When it is so, I find no reason why you should not have a taste of the state of absorbency and the feeling of light. Rest assured that diseases never enter the body of the abhyasi through our process of transmission. This is my experience as well as that of my master. On the other hand, it has often been experienced that some of the diseases do go out by the effect of the process of purification.
What do we mean by disease never enter the body of the basis through a process?
Because in transmission, what happens, the psychological condition, which you can also use the spiritual condition of the trainer is transmitted to the abhyasi, who are all having the same goal of purification of the mind and the same goal of regulation of the mind and the same goal of getting absorbed in the divine consciousness. So in that process, he says the samskaras of the trainer which may in future, or which may, when they become manifested in the conscious mind of the trainer, come into experience as diseases, will not be transmitted along with the spiritual impulse. That is his idea. And he has said so. So there is also a will on his part that this will not happen in future, because his will is of a supreme personality. If he has said so, that will be operative. And then even if the Abhyasi is transmitting, only the spiritual impulse which will help the Abhyasi to awaken the spiritual conditions in him, only the spiritual benefit only will happen. It will not be associated with the impurities which may, that is the idea he's talking here.
Okay.
Spiritual training through yogic transmission by the grace of mystery, which the people in general do not know. It is a great wonder when a great personality like Lord Krishna, Swami Vivekananda, or my master changes the entire course of a man's life. How is this done? Some skeptics may say it is after all due to the person who wanted to change himself, and the master or guru was the cause merely for name's sake. If Lord Krishna had such power, why did he not change the heart of Duryodhana instead of bringing about the battle of Kurukshetra? They may quote many stories wherein somebody taking a worthless person or even a lifeless object as a guide has become a great saint. But this need not hinder us in trying to find out the reality, because God's ways are mysterious. Some are deluded by their own thinking, and some are illumined by divine grace. If the question as to from whom Lord Krishna got light is put to me, my answer would be that he is self-luminous. But then this need not mislead the inquirer that he too is self-luminous and everyone else is also such, and there is an end to all inquiry. Logical speculations are no substitutes for the cravings of the heart. The heart is not satisfied even if the logic stops dead in some blind alley. Pranahuti is effected through the power of will, which is always effective. If a trainer in spirituality exerts his will to mold the mind of the trainee, it will bring effective and excellent results. Many Swamis who start the profession of Gurudom, as soon as they put on the osher-colored uniform, complain that although their Shishyas listen to them with interest, yet they remain as crooked as the tail of the dog. The reason is obvious. Either the Swamiji does not exert his will, or he has got no power. The teachers prescribe many laborious and brain-taxing practices and leave their disciples to their own fate. Neither does the teacher know the result of the methods, nor does the disciple care to use his discrimination. The result is internal grossness, dullness of the intellect, and loss of freedom on the part of the disciples, and corruption, degradation, and moral turpitude on the part of gurus, who are very conscious of only their right to teach, but quite unmindful of their duties and responsibilities towards their disciples. I'll take a pause here. I'll move ahead.
Yeah.
The worthy trainer with the power of yogic transmission weakens the lower tendencies of the mind of the trainee and sows the seed of divine light in the innermost core of the Abhyasi's heart. In this process, the trainer uses his own will force, which has the divine infinite power at its back. In a way, he is conscious of that, and he just focuses it through the lens of his own will upon the heart of the trainee. The trainee may not feel anything at the beginning. The reason is that he is accustomed to feel only through the senses, and the divine power is beyond the senses. After some time, however, he may feel the results of such transmission, which also are in the form of subtle changes of the workings of his vital part. Analogy of this process may be found in to those of Pranahuti. In these baser arts, the hypnotizer uses his will force with the backing of material power, and the will of the hypnotized person is weakened, and he finds himself dull and heavy-hearted after he wakes up from the hypnotic trance. A disease may be cured, or a particular tendency of mind may be suppressed to some extent, depending upon the power of the hypnotizer and the submission of the hypnotized. But the effect does not last long. The hypnotic power is developed by some intense mental and physical practices using material things or mental images as objects of concentration. These practices often lead one to mental deformity or insanity, and sometimes even physical deformities will be the result. A successful practice after a long time may, however, result at most in the gain of some material power, which is limited and useful only for the gratification of some kinds of desires, as long as it lasts. By now, the reader might have come to the obvious conclusion that the power of Pranahuti is a divine power working through the channel of pure mind. How is the mind purified? How does it get connected with the divine power? The simple answer is that these happen when the thought is linked up with God permanently. Again, how is one to link up his thought with God permanently? Many answers have been given to it, but the secret which bubbles up from the bottom of my heart is that it is my master who does it, who did it, and who is doing it. When I saw my master, my heart was filled up with his light. I started to remember him constantly as my Lord, my master, and my soul. May all true seekers find him. Amen.
We'll read the next if there's anybody wants any comment or any clarification.
I'll read ahead.
Yeah.
There are no queries. Basis of transmission. The material particles can be transformed into energy. The view is not so controversial since matter in its superfinest state is converted into energy. Or in other words, matter is only energy in a grosser state. It is a scientific law, and as far as I understand it, is accepted by modern science too. This is very elementary basis of our system of transmission. You have yourself expressed it beautifully as transmission works in the conversion of matter into energy and energy into the ultimate. Pranahuti aided meditation versus other systems. There is an organization in this part of the country which professes to impart spirituality. It commands a pretty large following, and people who join it seldom break off, even though some of them, to my personal knowledge, are greatly disgusted and averse to it. I find that they have adopted unspiritual ways to keep the Abhyasis bound fast, not only by inducements and allurements, but even by fright and threats. And when I study their inner condition, I find not one of them having any spiritual achievement. But they are all caught up by some material force. You will find hardly one amongst them who is nearer the mark in any way. Whereas in our sanstha, you will be happy to note that none of the preceptors has even the slightest touch of Maya in all his transmissions. It is only the pure wave that flows from him to the Abhyasi. In my opinion, such pious methods must at all cost be adhered to in order to promote piety and righteousness all over. I pray for the making of such noble personalities to work for the enlightenment of the world, and time alone shall bring the results to light. We must try heart and soul to prepare such worthy souls as may be useful and helpful to the future world. It matters little if a few break off from us, because what they have gained during their brief contact will develop in the subsequent life, if not in this one. Thus, our labor is by no means wasted or lost. Thoughts during transmission. Even a preceptor of caliber complains about the encroachment of thoughts during meditation. For that, I would earnestly say that during transmission, as my master says in one of his writings, the Sukshma Sharira of the teacher enters the body of the Abhyasi knowingly or unknowingly, and this brings to him the wavy thought which the Abhyasi has. Of course, they may be translated in such a way that the preceptor thinks them to be his. Happily, you have got very good Abhyasis, so the bad and vicious thoughts get no chance to attack you. I unfortunately found a few men from whom I was feeling the squalid sensation within me, and I transmitted it to them. I then refused to accept them as members of the samstha. There was another case in which I found that when I transmitted to him, pictures of naked women were coming to me as he was a perfect debauch. So I did not take him into the samstha. The master too had met with similar observations in two cases. If a preceptor of caliber wants to minimize such thoughts occurring in him, he may give suggestion to the Abhyasi's individual mind to stop such working during transmission, and it will be helpful. But this process should not be done very frequently, because preceptors know many things about Abhyasi by the help of the individual mind. I'll read ahead.
Yeah.
Pranahuti. Our Mahatmas and Sannyasis have burnt tins of ghee in Havan without caring for the economic condition of India. They would give offerings in the fire continuously for 2 or 3 months throughout the 24 hours. Whichever Mahatma wants to elevate himself begins by burning the wealth of India in the Havan. Every year we get such news. I do not know the condition of South India. Probably they do it there also. And those who don't do this entice the public into the mirage of Kundalini. In spite of all this, none of our Mahatmas could yet kindle the fire in the heart of a single person, but have burnt excessively that which could have been useful to their children and which could have helped the correct formation of heart and brain. By giving ahuti of the very prana, if the institute could kindle the fire even in one person, it would be better work than 1,000 yajnas. If you think over this deeply, you'll find that you might have kindled this fire in so many hearts. And many a one might be there in whom you can kindle it. And you too were such a person that a simple sentence which I had written on some occasion had affected you so much that the extinguished flame in you got lit up once again. And this became so bright and intense that the flames began to go out. You have started correctly. The field has got to be prepared and is being prepared. If the extinguished hearts come before such a heart, and even the warmth has gone out of them, they will certainly be lit up. The sphere of your work has got to be enlarged. Here, I must assure you that spiritual training for the attainment of higher stages is only possible by the process of yogic transmission and by no other means. Power of transmission is a yogic attainment of a very high order by which a godly effulgence within anyone and remove anything unwanted in him or detrimental to his spiritual progress. Transmission. Transmission through Ajna Chakra or a little above it makes the Abhyasi feel light. In case of transmission on the point far above the Chitta lake, one will not feel the light but pressure if he is unable to bear the power. We are the sons of the land where sun ever shines, where darkness has no place and the light bids farewell. Our yogis do not infer fire from smoke. They directly see the substance. When one comes to the real Sahajavastha, he can read the real way of each individual soul and the tendency of nature in his own. A little concentration will reveal all this. Fitness of a trainer. The general rule is that the light should begin to flow automatically without any willful effort. And when, without their being aware of it, people begin to receive spiritual benefit from a person, then he is fit to be made a trainer.
Last one mentioned about power of transmission is a yogic attainment of a very high order, by which a yogi can infuse by his own willpower or will force the yogic energy or godly indulgence or effulgence, godly effulgence within anyone and remove anything unwanted in him or detrimental to his spiritual progress. There you need to add that if the Abhyasi wanted them to be removed, if they doesn't want to be removed, nothing could be done.
That's right. If anybody, he is giving you the requirements, potential requirements of a person who can be made into a trainer. He is very clear on that. He says a general rule is that the light should begin to flow automatically without any willful effort. And when without their being aware of it, people begin to receive spiritual benefit from a person, then he's fit to be made a trainer. That means the persons coming near that will feel peaceful, and then without this person's purposeful effort also. I mean, an Abhyasi is there if he is living in his natural state, and if he meditates properly with his mind absorbed in the divine light, then his mind itself becomes softer, and divinity will be alive in his heart. And he need not actually make an effort to influence the other person. Without his knowledge, the other person will feel the peace around that person. So the other persons in the group can easily become aware of such a devoted Abhyasi. Then that person can be considered as a trainer. We'll go to the next. Next one is a fairly big one. We'll stop.